Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Hal here for Football Pandemonium.
Football Pandemonium.
Today is the day we've been waiting for. Our first coach joins us all the way from South Carolina. Coach Todd Shigley, the head coach at Andrew Jackson High School, is going to share with us how he creates explosive plays with his special teams. Can't wait to see it. Let's get to it right now. Today with us, we have Coach Todd Shigley from Kershaw, South Carolina. He's the head coach at Andrew Jackson High School, and he's going to be talking to us about creating explosive plays on special teams, specifically with punt block and kickoff return. Coach Shigley, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, Lewis.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It's going to be an adventure. You're number one, so I'm excited.
Well, I am too. I haven't ever done something like this too, so I was interested when you sent out the invitation to our little chat group, and so glad to try to pass on some of the things I've picked up along the way.
Yeah, and I love special teams. How much time do you get to practice special teams during the week?
We put a bigger emphasis on it than some of the places that I've been. Just with special teams, that's kind of you fitting it in. But we've been fortunate here that we got a bunch of kickers too. We joke around that this guy that's kicking at a college, he made it cool to be a kicker. And so since he left, I mean, every year on the varsity, we've had 4 kickers. So it's like we always have to find. So anyways, they're kicking all pretty much all practice, but then we spend about 20 minutes every day, Monday through Wednesday, and then our perfect practice Thursday, that they go through their reps. But Monday through Wednesday, it's about 20 minutes that we focus on special teams each day.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm excited to hear what you got for us, what they do over in South Carolina. I'm sure some of it's a little different than what we see in New Mexico, but I'm sure a lot of it's the same too.
Yeah, it's what doing this too. That it is cool that a guy from South Carolina can be talking to a guy from New Mexico about football and just curious what it looks like. And it's still football, still blocking
Right.
and tackling and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm excited to get going with it.
All right, cool.
So, explosive special teams. We take pride in that, but we try to create the explosive plays on special teams. Kind of early in my career, that learn special teams is a momentum deal, and so creating those explosive plays can really kind of spin that. So I've been fortunate in my career that I've been at some places where I've gotten to learn about special teams and then kind of input that pretty quickly as far as or being able to kind of put my stamp on it and help out. So just real quick about me, my bio, and I put on there, it's not a coaching stop, but I was in the Air Force for 4 years. And so kind of traveling around and picking things up. But I think that the Air Force and the military just in general kind of gives you that detailed background, or at least the job that I had. And, studying and trying to pick up on nuances and details was kind of the thing I took from that. But while in there, that played flag football and was able to, in a way, I guess, kind of get a brief stint as a coach and player, and while doing that. And so it might have been where the bug, as far as knowing that I wanted to coach, really started to take hold, because it was not really what my intention was when I was in high school or when I went to college for a couple of years before I joined the Air Force. And so was there, picked up a lot of that, and just kind of set a foundation for me, I believe, as far as just my core values and things like that. So get out of the Air Force. I'm going back to finish school, get my degree. And, that was something that I've always wanted to do. And didn't really do well my first year in school. So that's why I was in the Air Force, and realized real quick that I needed to find something that I enjoyed doing as far as a job, because I wasn't going to get paid the same like I was in the Air Force. And so asked about coaching at a couple of high schools near University of South Carolina and Columbia, and Coach Burnett was the one that replied basically and let me jump in immediately coaching with the B team, with the ninth grade team. We got all their B team, ninth grade team is normally what it's called below the JV here in South Carolina, but most of the bigger schools are the ones that have those. And so it was me and one other guy that were coaching the freshman team. And, it was two other guys, but anyways, I was the one on offense. There was one for defense, and then there was the head coach. And that was pretty much it. But then on Friday nights, I charted plays and kind of got my feet wet on that, of seeing some of the statistics types of deal. And, Coach Burnett just kind of let me do whatever I wanted to do. And then in year two, I was actually, me and another coach were the head coaches for the B team. So just really was able to kind of get the input or put a lot of things in quickly as a young coach. But the other thing to mention here just with this and why I put those guys' names on there from the coaches that I was with was just I picked up something from every single one of them. But I've been extremely fortunate that I've been around the coaches that were the head coaches that I have, that there's already several of these guys on here that are in the High School Hall of Fame or will be coaching Hall of Fame, as far as what they get to, or guys that have gotten to 200 wins, that it's kind of crazy when I think back on it, this list of people. So started there, and after airport wanted to try my hand at college coaching, thinking that was the way I wanted to go, graduated from USC, and again asked around the state. And Coach Bentley at PC at Presbyterian was the only one that responded. Well, a little background about him. Coach Bentley's won a lot of games at Burns High School in South Carolina, and then made the jump to college and was the head coach there. And so I came in there, and I was basically an analyst before they were called analysts, or quality control, because couldn't really GA because they didn't have any graduate programs at Presbyterian College. But I was in charge of the special teams, scout teams at PC, and then helped out with offense. And so again, that's where I got to study a bunch of film and just kind of opened my eyes to what special teams could be. Just because at the high school level, what you were mentioning earlier about the time that you spend, it's not as much, but at college, they spend a little more time, and the schemes get a little more complex. So learned a lot doing that. And then after that, jumped back to the high school ranks because I was going to get my teaching certificate to teach in high school. And Coach Magdick was the defense coordinator at PC when I was there. And so he got the head coaching job at Greenville, and I followed him there. Was the special teams coordinator at Greenville for the varsity, and then coached a bunch of other items. Again, just, one thing to younger coaches is just do as much as you can. And so, I was coaching they called it the D team there, which was the middle school team. And then they had the B team, and then the JVs that, or I guess there it was called C team maybe. Anyways, coached all those. So basically Thursday through Friday, I was just coaching nonstop. But then the big thing was the special teams, and it was the year leading up to the 2010 season that I went to a clinic at the University of South Carolina, and a coach, and I know I'm butchering his name, but Rich Biaskia, that was at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now he's with the Las Vegas Raiders, did a presentation on special teams there, and just blew me away with, how detailed you could get, and took a lot of stuff from him from that clinic, and then try to input it. But it's also my time at Greenville that I realized that special teams, a lot of it comes down to players too. So 2009 season, we're in the third round of the playoffs, and we're playing Daniel High School, which they actually just won the 3A state championship this year, but they always produce players. And they had a guy named DeAndre Hopkins for them, and he was returning punts. And he returned a punt on us, and that was the difference in the ball game. We lost 14-7. But, you can get it all covered up, and then a guy just makes a heck of a play, and that's what he did in that game. So from there, I finished up my graduate degree and got my first teaching job and started dating at the time, or now my wife, but started dating her then. And so I was trying to move closer to where she lived, and she already had a teaching job. And so I found a job at Lamar High School, which Coach Boyd there, one of the Hall of Fame coaches already, has over 200 wins, won 3 state championships. So I'm stepping into, just a historic program, and was the offensive coordinator there and helped out with special teams that year. And then the year we got married, that I moved to Lancaster, which is the county that I'm in now, and how I ended up here. But was at Lancaster High School for 2 years, coaching the quarterbacks. Had a little bit of input on the special teams there, but not as much. But another Hall of Fame coach and won state championships, Coach McMurray. He's won wherever he's gone, and so picked up some things from him, and then was looking for a little different with the teaching perspective, as far as I was teaching at the middle school, but coaching at the high school, and that's what brought me to Andrew Jackson High School, and came here. Coach Moore was the head coach at the time, the first year I was here, and he was a guy that's coached, had numerous head coaching positions, and again let me kind of have some input in some areas. And then Coach Fry came for a couple of years, and again had a strong input, but kind of still that emphasis on the things I picked up early in my career, as far as how to make special teams special, or to get those explosive plays. And then 2017, Coach Fry stepped down, and I was named the interim, and then I guess did well enough that first year, or showed progress, that they kept me on as the head coach, and been here, and just finished our 4th season, and just enjoyed being here, and family lives in the area, and just a great place to be. If you like small towns, because we are a small town, small area here. So just real quickly about us, our program name, or kind of our motto or slogan that we have the whole time, is be the best. And so all that means is, we're going to battle in everything that we do. We're going to have enthusiasm. We're going to support each other, or praise our highs, and that's also the element where we kind of do some character ed, and kind of try to pour into our student athletes. And then the T squared is trust and toughness, as far as we're going to trust each other to do the right thing. And hopefully we pour enough into each other that we know we can trust one another. And then we're going to be tough. That, where I got some of this, and kind of putting this way, was Randy Jackson, a coach in Texas, and he had put out a book a few years back, and talks about tough people win. And so that's where we added that. And we think that that's an element that we have to have in there. So we use that all over the place. Each day of the week has a point of emphasis, and it's one of these core values that we have. And so in doing those each year, we try to get a little better, in kind of where we went to. Some of the things that we do is something else I picked up from a coach that, interesting. I just read and find everything that I can. Was a coach named John Perry. He was at Pearl, Mississippi at the time when I found this, but he's apparently now up in Missouri. And he had these team goals. So we tried to do something where I let the seniors kind of pick the goals for the season. And, they were just kind of all over the place. But it really sunk into me when I saw these, as far as this just needs to be your game goals. Like, not worrying about how many yards you get, not how many touchdowns you score, but if you focus on these and you go in this order, that you can be really successful. And so we implemented those after the first season, and we got better. And then in that third season, so 2 seasons of working these goals, that we were, really good. And so this is something that we spend time going over with the players. Like Monday, that's the first thing I talked to them about is, how we did from the game. And these numbers, they add up. Like it's crazy how much on point that they've been, and how we do that. So point of also putting this up here with special teams is number 4 on there. So winning special teams, the way we do that is, it's not going to be as many plays as offense or defense. So we just count, did we win that play? And then we chart at the end, were we plus or minus in special teams? Did we block a punt? That'd definitely be a win for us. Did we get a 20-yard return on kickoff? That'd be a win. Flipping some of the field position. And so looking at it that way, and just kind of a pass fail, I guess, is the best way to think of it. A plus or minus there, and we just hope to have more pluses than they do. And so, but it's up there high. It's not like it's down here at the bottom, because you start getting down into know your alignment and assignment and some of those things that that they're not as key as these top 4 are, is what it really comes down to. So we go through those at the beginning of the week, and then I got one here that was our week 2 from last year. And so something else that we do along the way is up there for the first goal, the plus 12, that's where we were at in our turnover margin for the season at that point. And so we got our week 1, or first game we can play is week 0. So we had actually played 3 games at this point to get to that plus 12, is how we were. But we were playing awesome at the beginning of last year, that, and this was a really big game for us leading into it. Blacksburg was ranked at the time, and, we kind of felt a little cut from this, as far as that people were expecting them to win and not giving us a chance. And so we kind of played that up, and our guys went out there and performed extremely well and showed that, when we do these, that what can happen. And so the special teams, though, was kind of where the game really flipped here, that we were a plus 6 on what had happened here. And so, it proved out to be a big part of the game. And I think a couple of the clips I got are against Blacksburg that we'll see here in a minute. So how did we get here? Or, as far as some of the other things that go with this, is that early on, a foundation of learning fundamentals and nuances, that studying it, and I think being a special teams, being able to watch all that film at Presbyterian College, I could kind of see those little nuances in the stuff, the details of special teams, and what it really took to be good at those, and how it could flip games. And then being the special teams coordinator early on at Greenville, how that played out. But then, there's always that little element I was mentioning earlier, that if they got a dude on their team, you try to contain them, and you just kind of figure out where you can give a little sometimes, so that, you don't miss out on something. So really focus on that stuff, kind of data driven here is what we've worked towards. And then giving simple and clear in goals and instructions. So that, our team goals, we want them to know, we talk about them, what they are. And then I try to emphasize to our coaches to make sure when they're giving, coaching to the guys, that it's clear and to the point. Like we don't need to give them a dissertation about what's going on. That our guys sometimes too don't do well when you try to be too wordy with them. If you just give them kind of a 1-sentence deal, that they're easy to do that, or a little catchphrase. that they seem to like that. So then the other big thing is making it important as far as making special teams. But if you want them to be successful in it, you got to make it and show to them that it's important. And so that's what we've tried to do with special teams. And then like to be a contrarian as far as think a little different from the herd. And so some of our special teams formation, some of the things we do is a little different. Just to be successful at the school we're at, we got to be a little different, because it showed for about 20 years that if you tried to do the cookie cutter way, it wasn't going to be too well. But we've been fortunate to be pretty successful the past 5 or 6 years here, and it's being a little different and thinking outside the box, but we're always kind of looking for that edge. So what I kind of put as the anatomy of a explosive special teams, or how do you get to that point, is that making it important it's a mentality. So I think this was the Iaskia guy from Tampa Bay that I learned this from, was don't call it punt return if you want to go block a kick. Call it punt block. And they got that in their brain, that's what it is. I'm a real big mental prep coach and feel like if we can be mentally prepared that we're going to be a whole lot better off. So that's what I try to refer to it all the time, as punt block. Now, sometimes I think my habits of calling a punt return that sneaks in there sometimes. So, and then for kick return, we always break down when we're coming out of the huddle before we take the field. We say to the house, and we talk about it. We don't want just a 20-yard gain. Like I don't really talk about, well, let's see if we can just get to the 30. No, I talk about let's go score. Like let's flip the field on this play. Let's get the momentum, and the guys buy into that. And then to the guys part of that is find the guys that it comes natural. You typically have guys that for whatever reason, to me, I kind of find these guys when we're watching them on JV, they'll go block a punt. I mean, and we don't really coach it a whole lot on the JV level as far as, they'll go through some of the drills, but they're not getting the attention that our varsity guys do. So they'll go block punts. Well, figure out who those guys are, because they just got a knack for doing it. They're just kind of natural at it. And then the same thing for the return guys that, for the return guy on punt block and for the return guys on kick return, that there's some guys that have it and there's some guys that don't. And that sometimes it's not your fastest guy on the team. And sometimes it's not the guy you would really think it was. Say on punt block, we want a guy back there that's going to go catch it. And he's got a little edge to him as far as he makes you a little nervous standing on the sideline. Is he going to go catch it? Is he not? But 9 times out of 10, he's going to catch it, come up with it, or if he doesn't, he falls on it really quickly. But they kind of have to have that little bit of stink in them, is what we call it sometimes. They're going to test the limits. And then, of course, speed is going to be the big equalizer here. I learned that at PC for the punt block part. Was we tried, to put the fastest guys, and that's in a way what we try to do now is those are going to be your blockers, and you basically that you can't go without that speed. There's going to have to be a couple of guys that do that that really help out with that. And so if they're fast, let them be fast. Is kind of what I tell our guys all the time. If you're fast, be fast, and don't sit there and think about it. Just go, and we'll kind of let the chips fall where they may. But if you're going fast, that you're putting a lot of pressure on the other guys. And then when we go to coaching it, we're going to start small. So we start with first steps. Stance is where, and so basically all spring, and then the first week of practice. And here in South Carolina, we have just helmets the first couple of days of fall practice. that this is where we'll focus on special teams more too. Like one of our early practices is just special teams. That's all we do. And so we'll just start with stance and like their first steps. And then, we got some drills that we do. Kind of a sort of funny story with that is, so when we start fall camp, we've gotten into a bit of a tradition that the very first drill we do, since we have some limitations, is basically it's a takeoff drill for kickoff that we'll have them, they just sprinting out, and that they're going to run around a trash can and then come to settle and, use their leverage to make a tackle. And so this year I wasn't planning on doing it just because of we actually got to start into shoulder pads the first go around. So felt like we needed to move on to something else. And the coaches and the players were like, what in the world are we doing? That's a tradition. We need to start that. So kind of developed that mentality of that they want that as part of the program, and they expect that. So we start small and then we rep it. Like we keep practicing it over and over again. And, the couple of the things, and when we get to the video, I'll kind of put in, for the pump block and kick return, what we emphasize and how we drill it, that type of deal. But then we reward it, that we give out helmet stickers, and they can get helmet stickers for that stuff. And, during practice, we were talking earlier the other day about trying to get the guys to go block it and giving them something if they do. That we'll try that with when we're on punt, is getting the JV guys, giving them a chance. I mean, we'll send 12, 13 of them to try to go block it and see if they can't get there. Make sure that the varsity guys are blocking it the way they're supposed to. So, and then during the season, I got to coach them up down there. Typically, we have a football class. We'll spend time watching it and coaching it. As far as I'll show them for pump block, I'll show them the formation, and we'll sit there and watch film, and we'll talk about the guys that can be beat. Where's the crease? That type of deal. And the same thing on kickoff return is these are the guys that we need to make sure we block up. They're the guys that get down there and make the tackle. So we'll sit there and spend time, again, make it important, and those guys tend to buy into that. So scheme wise, I don't think we're really, when it comes to these two teams, much different as far as the scheme, but you do have to kind of fit it to your personnel. And so kick return, we shifted that we do it, I guess, line up a little different from people, but the people that we throw out there on these teams aren't your typical people, I think, is really where that rolls into it. As far as like our kick return team, lots of times I see teams, they'll throw their linemen out there and they're the front line guys. Well, I'm sitting here thinking, why in the world are you throwing those guys out there? Like, we're just going to run past them. Like, they're not going to block anybody. They kick an onside kick, they're not as likely to cover it up and be able to move to it. And that's one thing I'm kind of thinking down the road, and been tempted to do it, but really want to next year, is to dive into studying that of onside-ing it more and testing the waters there. Because, again, kind of that data, Coach Kevin Kelly in Arkansas, that does a phenomenal job, and he's got all the statistics on that stuff, and it's crazy. It kind of makes sense, or wonder why you wouldn't do it. But anyways, putting the guys out there that are going to fit your personnel, help you out, and so just trying to find a little bit of an advantage wherever you can. And so it's the same thing on punt block. Is we'll rotate a few people out there. The linemen, defensive linemen, if they can't run, like they're not going to stay out there, because one, they're definitely not going to go block a kick, and two, they can't get back and help with blocking people up. And if anything, I learned from that, the defensive linemen are the ones that end up getting the penalties on the blocks in the backs or the blindside blocks because they're out of position. And so then you get a great return and they bring it back. So punt block, kind of the way we do it scheme-wise, though, is we're going to be sound first as far as we're going to cover the gaps and be aware of what fakes they could do. And I think that's part of keeping our defense out there is our primary defensive guys that we leave them on the field, that we'll rotate a couple of people, but pretty much our first team defense stays out there. And so once we make sure that we're gap sound first, then we'll hunt the ball as far as we'll go looking for it. And I'll slide this up so you can see here that, finding that natural crease or opening, that's one of the nuanced things I've found watching film, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to notice this, but every punt team has a natural crease. They have either the guy that don't block very well or doesn't block very well, or for whatever reason he widens too much or he goes down inside too much, and there's a crease somewhere. And typically it's the same gap on both sides, but one opens up a whole lot more than the other. And so with that said, scheme-wise, we kind of put it into, we got two blockers. We're going to have one on each side. We don't typically try to attack from one side only, because I found when we've tried to do that, it's almost like the teams realize that, and so they would block that guy up. Well, the other side's not going to go block it, and if they would have been going full steam to block it, they could have gotten there. So we send a guy from each side. Basically, we're trying to get back there to the ball, and but we kind of have a 1A and a 1B where we have our primary punt blocker, and we'll rotate him around where we think that biggest crease is. And then that second guy, we'll put him on the opposite side so that we're trying to free him up is ultimately what we're attempting to do. And something else real key to kind of with the mentality and the scheme part, and then I'll get to I got some diagrams to show before we watch the film with this, kind of dive into this a little bit more, is coaching it to take it off the foot of the kicker. Like, don't go attack the kicker or the punter. You go attack the ball. Like, take the ball off his foot, almost like you're just trying to pull it right off his foot. And that's been real helpful. That's something back to Florida State and Beamer ball. I remember watching a video of Virginia Tech and their stuff that, how they did that. And then somehow at PC we had a connection with Florida State and what they did. And so that was the wording that we used there. And so I'll get a little bit more into that here in a minute. But then kick return, we're going to make sure that there's no onside, and then we're a man blocking team, that we don't double wedge or starburst or, do something to try to get a bunch of people together. That, again, we're going to find where that natural crease is. There's always on a kickoff team, there's going to be somewhere where the two guys, either one goes left and one goes right, and it makes this crease, or if it's where the kicker is, they're 6 and 4, the 4 just kind of goes straight and the other 6 drift and will batch up together. But there's typically a crease somewhere. And so it's trying to find that crease, and can you get to that crease at the time? Because that's the other thing when it comes to kick return. It's actually a lot more, to me, about making sure your guys hit those blocks at the right time than just blocking them up, because they're only going to block them for probably 2 to 3 seconds. And so can your returner be hitting where they need to be hitting when they're hitting those blocks? Because they're only going to have a little bit of time to make sure to get to that. So we'll call out basically, you got so-and-so, and give them a number. And again, I'll get to that here in a minute. So going to exit out of this and go to that. I got those up on Huddle here. So we'll go through punt block first.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Let me see how I can word it. Before you're talking about plus or minuses on special teams plays. Do you give a plus or minus on every special team play, or are there some plays that may be just neutral for you?
Yeah, there's sometimes that they're neutral, but I try to make it as kind of black or white with the players as we can, because when you give them a gray area, it seems like they get a little uncomfortable with that, and they're not really sure what to take from it. And so if you tell them, and I guess I'm probably a little more hypercritical, but it also seems like with special teams that there is an either or. Like it's not there is a winner and a loser on each play. That's something we try to talk about during the week during practice. That's what we need to get to, is that you need to try to win every single play. And, we understand realistically we're probably not going to win at your individual spot every single play. But if we win more than we're losing, that we're going to be better off. But, yeah, sometimes I'll just kind of – there wasn't really – I guess both sides did what they were supposed to do. If we fair catch it, that type of deal. If they let's say, like, if they got a kicker that's good enough on kickoff and they kick it into the end zone, like, to me that's a loss to us. Okay. We're starting at the 20. Like, it's tough to drive the field from that point. And but if say we catch it and return it 5 yards and we're at like the 25 or the 30, that's not really a win or a loss, I guess. But that's probably everybody would be kind of content with being there.
Okay.
So, this is how we would line up. So basically, what we have is primarily there's going to be 4 guys or 8 total, 4 on each side in the box. And, when they line up like this, we got to drop an extra dude out to cover them up just to make sure, take that away. We've seen it a couple of times. Nobody recently has tried a fake on us. I guess it was last year, the team did. They'll throw it, but we're going to take away that slant. Kind of the easiest throw is typically what they're going to attempt to do here. But our emphasis is on inside the box. So here, what we're attempting to do, that you'll have like an edge player, is what the E stands for there in the blue, and so they're part of the process. And then the B is the blocker. So for whatever reason, most of the time, this is kind of how it works up, that these guys are going to the guys blocking. You have to figure that out first. Are they going to block their inside gap or their outside gap? And most of the time here, they're blocking outside gap. And you try to cram as many of them in there is the way we kind of talk to them is, you guys are going to be tight. You're going to be uncomfortable. Like, you guys need to be shoulder to shoulder. We want to try to confuse those guys on who's going where and make them just kind of second guess it. And so if we can, get both of our blockers through that B gap here, we think that one of them is going to make it, because ultimately one of those guys is going to get back there to the personal protector, and he's not going to be able to block both of them. And, that ends up being the case most of the time. And we've had it even sometimes where we were not even attempting to block it, and they kind of, I don't know if they get so frazzled or what exactly, but one of our guys will kind of just come through there and be enough to influence the kick or block it sometimes. There's actually a clip where that was the case this year. on this formation. So that's kind of our goal is so that edge player is going to be the guy that rushes to draw that end away from the blocker so that the blocker can straight line get there to take it off his foot. And so when we're coaching this, what I like for them to do is be in a spreader or 3-point stance, flat back, and their eyeballs are on the football, and they're watching the nose of the football. And that's what we tell them is you watch that front nose of the football. When that moves, you move. And so the other thing we're going to do to make it easier for them to see that is they're going to have their inside foot back. And so if they're on the right side, their left hand's going to be in the dirt. And then if they're on the left side, their right hand's going to be in the dirt. And then what that's going to help for is the wording we use is get skinny. And so that's your first step is you're going to get skinny. So that's why I like them to be in the 3-point stance is it's going to be easier for them to get skinny through the hole. And so as they take that first step, they're going to rip through with – so in the case if we're on the left side, I'm going to rip through with my left arm and basically twist to get through there so that again, it sort of feels backwards at first, but then when you actually take the steps, it makes sense. But if they throw that arm forward and that other one can come back, it's opposite of the way like you normally would run. As far as my right leg should be going forward, so my your left arm's going forward as your right leg's going forward is basically what's happening there. But that get skinny is if they can put their hands on your back, they're going to kind of shove you through the hole and push you to where you want to go. And it just makes it a little trickier for them to kind of get their hands on their chest and be able to block them up. The place where we sometimes have some difficulty is if they do bunch down too tight, that we'll have somebody just blow up somebody, one of these other guys. So normally it's these Fs would be the guy that we'll put in there with the task of just blowing somebody up to kind of push them out of the way for the blocker to get through there. So we'll go to the next one real quick, just kind of the same thing. So the shield punt, this again, this is actually what we do, except we'll have these gunners, we'll put them out here, and we spread these guys really wide. And this has been our toughest one to get blocks on. Sometimes but again, nobody we really play lines up like we do. So on punt. And so it's been a little tricky to I guess, get a good feel on how to do that. But I call it the three bears, but the shield back here, they typically are pretty big guys, and we haven't found, I guess, the right guys that if you can get 4 of them back there basically, or 2 of them through these A gap is how you're going to get to that. But we haven't found the guys that are going to go blow up these guys since we're not normally the biggest team. And so I don't know that some of our guys are been too crazy about going in there and taking on a guy that outweighs them by about 50, 60 pounds. So, but there is an opportunity to work that. Again, sometimes, you got to figure out which way they're blocking, or they're blocking in or out there, and roll with that. So then the pro punt, which is what I kind of started out as that we did this. And but I've found that, to me, this is one of the easier ones to block now, because I feel that way, that knowing from being on the punt side of this, that there's so much to coach to do this correctly, that we called it surfing, but that you had to take these surf steps backwards, 2 steps, and that it just gets a little tricky trying to get those guys to do that. With the intent of being technicians at it is kind of the deal here. So again, where we're most of the time I see this, and that's kind of how I line these up. It can really be anywhere. It just depends on, watching film, game planning for that week. But here again in or this time in the C gap, that where that blocker can get home from. And so, just a little bit more kind of the drill progression for us is, so we'll just do stance and starts, and I'll just hold the ball there and we'll move it, and they'll just take their first couple of steps is kind of the first part that we'll do with this, that they get in a 3-point stance and watch that nose of the ball and get skinny through there. Well, then the next part will be that basically we'll just practice putting our hands together. Basically, we tell them to kind of cover their hands and lock up their thumbs. And so I'll have them put their hands together like that and then just hold the football out, and they'll swat it out of my hand with those two hands is all that they'll do. Like that they're not taking any steps trying to run up to it, that I'll hold it out away like where it would be when they're dropping it to punt it, and they'll just swat it out straight down off my hand. Well, then the next part will be that we'll, with kind of nobody trying to block them, that they'll run through and run their angle. So that's something else that so you don't run into the kicker. There's kind of a method here that if you're one of these inside guys, say this guy here, he's actually going to stay on this side. Like he's not going to try to cross face it. And so then they got to learn how to run by and swat it down on that same side. And they get a little funny about that. But I mean, I give every single one of these guys, because sometimes we don't know. We'll plan for this guy to be the blocker, but sometimes the tackle does get through there, and he'll take it off his foot. But trying to teach them to not just go run straight in there, and that they're going to take some steps up, and we got to get to that launch point is ultimately what we're attempting to do, and take it off their foot, and then we'll have them go as best we can against people blocking them. Is what we'll do in getting to that point. And then when we get into the season, though, we'll line up however we need to line up, make sure we take care of being sound first, talk about to our 2 calls. We only got 2 calls is we're going to go get it, or we call it hold up is the other one. And the hold up, that was, again, something I still send 2 just to make sure that they punt it away. And I kind of learned that from us, that we've been fortunate the past few years really, on punt we'll use guys that aren't traditional punters. And it's just kind of worked out that way that our best punters have actually been some of our other position players. And the one last year especially, he would catch the ball, and it was like he was having a staring contest with the defense of whether he was going to punt it or not. He kind of had that little stink in him, and he would just stand there and hold the ball and see what they were going to do. And I realized that some teams don't send people to rush the punter. So you could just stand there, and if nobody's coming, I was like, just hold it. Let our guys go down there and cover it up, so that they don't have as good a chance to return it. And so when I started watching that, I was like, well, we need to be sending somebody just in case they try to do something like that. Or they bobble the snap back there and we got hold up on that they've been able to get it off. But if we send those other 2 guys, that it's going to kind of speed that up. It put some anxiety on the punter. And so that's what our edge players are, the E's, the blue guys there, that they do on that. And then we'll drop 2 guys when we do hold up. And that just depends on basically kind of who our linebackers are. Like this year, one of our guys that was the blocker, he was one of our linebackers. So he was one of the guys that would drop out and, just looking for the fake. But then during the week that everybody will go through once we line up and we talk about what fakes they could do, what we need to be aware of here, what hold up's going to look like, is we'll just run through practicing, taking it off the foot. That the punters will sling it back there to them, and they'll go run back, and the punter will just hold the football out and let them slap it down out, using their hands and making sure they're running the right angle. The other thing, and one thing we learned in the past, but here lately, we normally have enough footballs out there that it's not as big a deal, but deflate a soccer ball or a volleyball and let the punters put that and like kick that, or I'll have a coach do it so they don't go and take out the punter, that practice taking it off their foot using that. And that's been really helpful in, not getting people banged up trying to do that too. And, them getting a chance to learn how it's going to hit their foot there. But if they get there and take it off their foot, that, they're going to be better. But sometimes in the last one here, as far as lining up as the tight punt, this is the one sometimes we'll have an issue with just because they get so crammed down in there. But then we'd probably send somebody off the edge. Sometimes in this tight punt too, we'll drop these corners or tell those guys to drop out. But I like to get them up there and get them close to the line, and again just kind of put the pressure on the punt team to think, wow, they're sending 10 guys to come get it. We better make sure we're going to block, because I got some clips to show we didn't get to block it, but we influenced them. And that's the thing is, once you block a couple or even show that you can get back there on film, you put a lot of pressure on the other team, and you might not block it, but last year we had 2 incidences where we didn't block it, but we returned one where the guy, I don't even know if he kicked it to the line of scrimmage, and one of our guys just realized the situation, picked the ball up and ran it in for a touchdown. And then another one, we were playing a team, and I got both of these clips that this punter went on, and I believe he's kicking in college. I mean, he's an extremely good punter. I mean, he'd boot that thing 50 yards and hang it up there where you didn't have any chance to make a return on it. And we, from what we saw on film, we kind of got in his head that, he shanked the first couple of them, and then he settled in later on. But that could be, when you create these explosive plays, that you can influence them that way. So real quick, go to the kick and just how we line up, and then we'll get to the film. So here we got how we line up. We put 4 on the front line, and then 2 fairly close to the front line, and then the other 5 are back there. For whatever reason, our league, our conference region, we call them regions here, that we'll have like one guy that's a really good kicker, and then the rest of them, they're just kind of all over the place. And so sometimes it's hard to set kick return up and be real successful at it. And that's partly why we went to moving as many guys up here to the line of scrimmage, because again, once you've returned a kick, they start coming up with all sorts of ways to keep the ball away from the kick returner. And it just makes it tricky to get a really good chance. We've also been really fortunate the past few years that we've been really good on defense. So we haven't had to do kick return a whole ton. And so that's partly why we try to emphasize it too, is, they might get 1 opportunity or 3 opportunities, and we want to win those 3 plays if that's what it's going to be. And so the guys have taken a lot of pride in doing that. And so I'll zoom in here to see. Thought there was a zoom in. Maybe it's on the edit the play. That we got them labeled like who their guy is, right? So scheme wise here, and is I'll get it back up. So this one says R5. So what we do is we'll count outside in for that number. So for this guy R5, he's actually counting over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's his guy, right? And then we'll talk about which side that he needs to influence him to, and where he needs to block them. So he might be trying to influence them this way, and typically then he's going to try to block them over here to the right, our right. Or if there's somebody that kicks it over here, which I think that's what this one was from our last game of the year, that they typically kicked it over here to the right, somewhere between the numbers and the hash, and figuring out where that's going to be is part of it too. So you kind of know where to line up this back end guys that, we're going to try to get on this side and influence him to run over there. And then that way we can pin them in. So our return points are typically the numbers, the hash, middle, hash, and then the numbers. It's kind of, so we got like 5 zones that we try to return it to. And where those creases tend to show up. Every now and then we'll get a team that's pretty good about pinning it between the numbers and the sideline. And so they'll kind of build a wall and come down in here. But there's been a couple of times where we've been able to get all the way back over. But if that's the case, we'll typically try to find a crease here and kind of hit them a little faster than they're expecting. Sometimes that's the way to go here. So, but the other big thing so once we figure out which way they're going to kick it, the next part I kind of focus on is there's always going to be sort of like on punt block that, there's guys that don't block very well and make a space even if they're not intentionally trying to do it. Well, on kickoff, there's guys that are not going to run their lane, or even kind of more to that point is there are typically 2 to 3 guys on every kickoff team that are never going to make a tackle. If nobody blocked them and then you let them run down the field, they won't make the tackle. That maybe it's a freshman that they're putting out there just to get them on the field, or, the booster club's son that's running down the field, and they just want to make sure that they get them out there for something. But there are typically 2 to 3 guys that will not make the tackle. So I started thinking to myself, why are we even messing with blocking them? Like, what's the point of blocking them if we're wasting one of our guys? And, let's use them on somebody that is going to make the tackle. And then on the kind of flip side of that is there's typically 2 to 3. And again, I sort of learned this from watching our kickoff team, was whenever I would count up tackles, it was the same 2 to 3 guys every week that made every single tackle on kickoff. So why not try to double team those guys with the guys that would typically trying to block these ones that aren't ever going to make the tackle? And so that's what we try to do. So like this game in particular, R5 was the guy that he would run down there and get down there first typically and just did a good job of making a play. I was trying to look at it. It didn't look like we were trying to double team 2 guys this time. This team, so the team we lost to in the playoffs this year, they're actually playing for the state championship. They're kind of a weird deal. They didn't have I don't think they had a COVID issue all year. And the team that they're playing, which is a historic power in our state in 2A, that neither one of them had any issue with COVID. Well, the week of the state championship, which was last week, the team Marion that we played had an issue with it. So they postponed the state championship game, so they haven't played it yet. They're going to play it next Friday. So hopefully they get it to get that game in. But Marion was the team we got drawed in the first round, which kind of worked out normally to what the second round would be, the way our playoffs are set up. That they had a bunch of guys that could run fast, and they did a really good job against us, covering us up on kickoff. And so that's partly why we didn't have more than one double team. But we still thought we had a chance to return one, and but we just didn't. They kind of got down on us a little faster than we were expecting, and that sometimes happens. That was the part I was going to say. That first we'll talk about kind of our contingency plan as far as we could practice this kick return all week, and then come out and they kick it to an entirely different spot. And so if that's the case, I want our guys to know what the expectation is. Because again, we don't put basically everybody that we try to put at least from really this spot back, we feel like it could return one. So if they sky kick it, they're kind of expecting people to fair catch it. And, we put guys there that we want to kind of test the limits. We've been fortunate enough to do that. But, if we're expecting them to kick it over here, say to the 20 in the numbers, and all of a sudden they sky kick it over here to the 35, I want this guy up here to know, well, catch it, and you're just going straight ahead. Like you're not going to have time to get into the mix, or letting them all know where that crease is to kind of give them a chance. And so we'll settle that first, and then we'll go through the kick. And we're trying to develop an alley or develop a tunnel is what they end up typically doing. And so, again, we can make all these great ideas, but then stuff happens in the game and kind of blows it up. And that's sort of what happened to us against Marion. Is they weren't the best at kicking the ball, and so where exactly it was ending up or how high it was going to go every time, that's what I think caught us off guard a little bit. And they were one of the faster teams that we played all year. And so I think they got back by some of our guys a little faster than they were expecting. So real quick, I'm going to go to the clips. Or you got any questions before I go on there, or anything you want me to go in more detail about?
Well, not really, but looking at your diagram, so it looks like your L1 and L3 guys are the guys you thought could not make the tackle. Am I correct?
Yes. And part of that was we were trying to return it to this middle to our right hash. And so these guys, if I remember correctly, because it's been about a month ago now, that especially L1, he just kind of ran all the way down here and never got in the mix. But I think it was L3 was the one that in fact kept making the tackles on us, that he just kind of weaved his way through there. But they, because this week too, when we played Marion, we had them at like the 20, our back guys at the 20-yard line. And so I think he was just kicking it a little higher than we were expecting. So it kind of threw our timing off of what was happening there.
Okay. And your returner on the right that's blank, does he just pick up trash pretty much?
Yeah. So we'll always leave one of them, and they know whoever doesn't catch it, they're the lead blocker. So, yeah, they're going to lead the way and pick up the first color that's not our jersey, basically. Okay. And it's been crazy. A couple of times we've gotten it where he doesn't pick anybody up until they get to the kicker. But most of the time the kickers, they don't want anything to do with it. So they're one we never put them into the count either as far as who we're blocking. But, yeah, L1 and L3 were the guys this week. I think R1, too, he never fell in. I think they were like their safety guys. And lots of times, too, they just kind of linger somewhere. And so sometimes they're hard to account where exactly they're going to be. So we'll get to some clips here, and you can pause it ask any questions as we're going through it. I tried to put our best ones up here to begin with, and I've got clips from the past 3 years, so this season and the past 2 seasons to show here. So is it showing up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is one of our rivals. This was 3 years ago, and so it was the first quarter of the game. This is one, again, this spread punt. To me, I'm just kind of I'm like we're going to get one this week. And again, I tell the guys all week, when I really think we're going to get one, and so it kind of gets them excited up, and that mentality part of it too. Like I can't overemphasize that, but then once you've gotten it, and they kind of like sharks, that blood in the water. That I mean, they get crazy about it. But this week, our guy is basically this guy and this guy was who it was. And so, these guys, they graduated last year, but they were juniors this year, but they were our ballers, and, did a lot of really good things for us. And, seemed like they would step out when it came to that. So, So here again, it's, this guy's about to get there, but we got the guy coming from over here, which is one of our linebackers, but I mean, nobody blocks him. And then Ty, our guy that's supposed to block, he recovers it for a touchdown. And I mean, that was a huge play. Just a quick, kind of with the momentum part of this. So this team, they're one of our rivals. We've split them since I've been head coach. We beat them both times we've played at our place, and they've beat us both times we've played at their place. We played them at their place this year. They won the region. But this is first quarter, and what's really happened with it is when we've been able to jump on teams, it kind of really throws them off. And that's what this happened in the first quarter, and this is how we scored first. That we were kind of not doing so well, or as good as we thought we were going to do. So we needed to pick me up. Well, we did this, and you could kind of start to see the wheels going, that they were getting a little worried about what was going on. And so I think it was the next series, maybe two series later, our starting quarterback broke his collarbone and deflated us, and we just, again, the momentum part of it, never got it back. And so it's a crazy thing, but that's what happened with that one. So let's see if I slide this down. I don't know which. Maybe that would work better. So here this year, first game of the year, team that historically we have not been successful against. We've played them roughly 40 times and only beaten them 7, but we have been fortunate enough to beat them 2 times in the past 2 seasons. So really big game for us, and this was the deciding play, really. And so one thing to point out here is, the 2 previous seasons, our guys, they like to prefer to get into the 3-point stance and flat back and kind of a speed stance. This year, most of our guys were not as crazy about that. And I know that you are like me doing the kind of the feed the cats deal, and so been sprinting some. And I've found that you actually are faster at first from the 2-point stance than you are kind of the acceleration, or at least me personally, than you are the 3-point stance. So I've kind of bent on, being fanatical about them being in a 3-point stance. However they can get there is kind of what I've turned it into. So the guy that comes loose and blocks this, he's our linebacker and he's our blocker. And again, he's one, you look at him and you're like, that guy ain't going to block a punt. But JV, the past 2 years previous, he was a punt block extraordinaire. I mean, it was crazy. And so he came up to varsity, and he was our guy. The thing I got to get on him about, though, and he does in this play, is he does not want to take the ball off the guy's foot. He will just lay the dude out. Saying this was actually later in the game, but again, because we get the touchdown off of it, why I put it before this one. But he got us a couple of times where he ran into the guy and didn't block it. And so we got a 15-yarder and they got an extra drive, and that actually happened against Marion. And that's the first drive that they went down and scored on. So I think I got that clip, but got us going. This was a tough game as far as just offensively we couldn't get going. So this was last year. Again, this is a bit of that shield punt, but they're kind of all over the place on what to do. And, doesn't get a whole lot of it. But, again, it's another one of the guys that not the guy we're expecting to go block it. So our blockers here are 4. And then I can't tell which one this guy is. I think we were trying somebody else out, but he doesn't get back there. Oh, excuse me, that is 9. That was our other guy. So 4 and 9. And 9 was the one that was on that very first clip. But 6, one of our linebackers gets back there off the edge, makes it all the way. Their operation was kind of slow, this team. But he gets there. And then I've learned, too, this is kind of a funny situation as far as, coaching this. What do? Well, if it doesn't pass the line of scrimmage, it doesn't matter if you touch it or what. Like, you're gonna get it. Only if we pick it up and try to run with it and then fumble it that we wouldn't get it back. So the guys knowing what to do. So here's that same game earlier in the game, and this is actually where we end up scoring our other touchdown in this game because of this one. So again, 40 makes it home and just lays them out. And we know what we're getting with him at this point. So, we're going to try to work on that. We got him back for next year to hopefully learn to take it off the foot so we don't have those issues, because that burned us twice. So here's the Marion game. So here's our blockers, 40. I really thought we could go get one here, and this is the only clip I have of this one. Again, to kind of set up the situation, we're down 14-7. This is the first drive of the second half, and again, we just have struggled to move the ball very successfully. Although they're playing in the state championship, they got a really good defense. They got a defensive lineman that's committed to South Carolina, big old kid. But I felt like we could block a punt, and we hadn't gotten there, but been close. Again, when you play teams that aren't necessarily the best at kicking the ball, which I felt like this guy was, there's sometimes just weird freak things. So we, on the first punt, get all the way back there, and 40's there to block it. And he actually makes the attempt to take it off his foot, but he jumps when he does it. Well, somehow he misses it, and the guy punts it straight up where he doesn't get it instead of kind of the normally trajectory of it. And so he punts it, and it doesn't get blocked, and then he's off his feet, and he runs into him, and that's where we got the 15-yarder. But, if he, punts it how 90% of punts are, we block it easy. But it's just weird how that happens. So here's one where something I look forward to do they step over here to the right and kind of kick it. And that's what this guy did. And so we block it. Unfortunately, it bounced straight up to us. We turn it into a touchdown, 14-14. And so we got a lot of momentum going for us at that point. But then again, we offensively just couldn't do quite enough to keep up with them. And it's crazy to watch the other team when especially when you block a punt and return it for a touchdown, what happens there. So this was 2 years ago. This is Blacksburg, the team I was showing the goals from. This was the year before those goals. But again, we thought we had a really good chance. High snap, so it made it funny. Had a couple guys that weren't completely committed on, doing a good job of blocking. And I think kind of felt the pressure, because that was one I didn't even feel from the sideline that we really even blocked it. So here's the this year, our rival school played them at home again, and one that really we weren't planning on trying to block it, but we're going to send somebody. We're actually kind of in our base defense, but I believe it's 40s here, and he just kind of gets through there. Nobody blocks him. He just comes late and, again, just has a knack for the ball. And, we needed that, and unfortunately we couldn't do anything with it. So here's 2 years ago again. And that's what's been kind of interesting too. When you block one kick or block one punt, that in a game, it's almost like the percentage of blocking a second one is higher. And that tends to be what the case. And then maybe it's just the fact that those teams aren't as good at covering it up as or blocking as well as the other team. But this guy too here, again, he wasn't the guy we were sending to go block it, but nobody goes through there because they're paying attention to these other ones. And he's a big 6'4" kid and gets his hands and does, I think, a good job of taking it off his foot. Like, he's not going for the kicker, to kind of see that part where we're coaching at. So here's the kid that first round of playoffs last year that can boom it and does a really good job. But they're in this spread punt, and they got a good long snapper too. So, I wasn't really thinking we were going to be great at getting back there. But we get enough to influence him, and I'm going to let it run to show where it ends up. I mean, this guy normally boots it 40 yards easy. Like, it's a minimum going to be a 40-yard punt. And so it lands here, and our returner, he's one of those guys that's got a little bit of that stink in him. He just comes flying up. He reads the situation and returns it for a touchdown. And at that point in the game, too, like that was pretty much the nail in the coffin. Like, they just kind of gave up at that point. We felt like we had a good chance to beat them, even if we didn't get all those things. But that was really kind of what turned it to got really ugly after that, as far as the score goes. So here's again this year our rival school, and we're down at this point again. We struggled offensively just kind of as a whole this year compared to what we normally do, and we're looking for any points we can get. And again, this is one I'm not real sure if we blocked it or if we just kind of influenced it. But that pressure, the simulated pressure, to me is what causes this. So, again, kind of a Johnny on the spot of one that's willing to take some risks, and he kind of aggravates you sometimes on things. But he was another one that he might be one of our returners next year because ball just happens to come straight to him, and he's not our fastest guy on the team, but he just can play football and turns it into points. And so I think at that point it cut it to a 2-score game or made it to where we had some momentum. We had a shot, we felt like, to come back, but didn't quite have enough. So I think this is just the end zone cut of the one we just watched. And that's something that I learned from college is if you can get an end zone cut of another team when it comes to special teams, and really I guess any part of it, it's crazy what you can see on that part. But I think we're the only team in our region that, and we didn't get it till this year. So this is last year against Blacksburg, and the team where I showed the team goals. So again, we had blocked 2 the year previously at their place, and we felt like we could go get it again last year. And again, I'm not sure. I think we gave credit to somebody blocking it, but it was more of an influence thing, I think, there than anything. It's kind of hard to tell for certain whether we got there or at least partially blocked it. But at that time, our guys are smart, kind of getting away. Here's Blacksburg again. And, this punter is not like he was a horrible punter. Like, we thought going into the game, that again, this long snapper is pretty good, gets it back there pretty good time, but I think it was the same guy from the previous year, and so he might have had in the and so that was something right there that I was trying to get our guys to understand. So here's Christchurch again. We should have got that one coaching point here. Don't leave your feet, and so that's what I told him was, if he just runs through it, he's going to be fast and take it off his foot, but that little bit of jumping was the difference. So again, having that little bit of he stinking him is rolling around like that, and we're not wanting him to pick it up, but at the same time, I kind of want him to live a little bit on the edge. So we'll get to so here's this is the one. This is the first drive. Or no, excuse me, this is not the first drive. It's probably the second or third drive. But this is their they get the 15 yards here because 40 just goes and plows into them, and how we don't block it. Again, it goes straight up instead of like out like you would think it would. But they're jumping. They're not trying to take it off his foot. That they get 15 yards and go down and score. I want to say it was like a couple plays later. So, I mean, it was a huge deal. It was funny. I was telling you earlier about watching some of that stuff on Glaciers that one of the guys on there was talking about, going to clinics and them showing it being perfect all the time. And that's why I wanted to put those other clips on there, is just, to show that we don't block everything, but you can influence them really well, or showing what not to do and why, and basically what we need to clean that up on. So just real quick on that, we played only 5 games this year, but we blocked 4 kicks, 4 punts, and so we kind of buy into that as far as the players do on that. All right, so kick return. So this is the team that I'm saying we haven't had a whole lot of success with as a school in general, and have been successful the past 2 years. The biggest kid on there, that's what's sometimes kind of crazy is, you can see who spends time on kicking and who doesn't. But the biggest kid on their team, this kid was seriously like 6'5", 400 pounds. He could not bend, he could not run, but their kick was they just put it on the ground and he kicked it wherever it kind of ended up. And so it's really hard to kind of game plan a return for that. But it just so happened that he kicked it the way that we wanted him to kick it on this one. And so to set the kind of the momentum part of this and where kick return can really influence this is we were up 14-0, and they hadn't really moved the ball. And then all of a sudden they got a touchdown and made it 14-7. And this is the ensuing kickoff after that. It's 14-7. They got all the momentum. And I said, guys, we need to make something happen here. And the guy returning the ball, he was going to be back this year. We probably would have returned a couple more kicks, but he tore his ACL first game week in practice, just a freak play. And so, but a really special player for us. And, he's a football player. And I said, OJ, we need to do something here. I was like, make something happen. So we broke it down to the house. And again, it's, kind of hard with that, but if we're thinking about it, I think good things are happening. So kind of our deal here this week was we wanted to get up this left hash is where we're attempting to do. Now, I will preface this with OJ is the type of player, he sometimes is going to go rogue on you a little bit, but he means well, and he actually has a lot more football IQ than he'll sometimes lead on. And so he kind of starts out here that he's just going to go do his own thing. And I'm like, oh, man, what in the world is he going to do? But then all of a sudden he sees it. And again, that's where, to me, his football IQ, he realized the blocks weren't ready yet is ultimately what it was. And so he comes through here and you know, just makes a heck of a play after that. Flips the momentum, and it's 21-7, and they're deflated at this point because they had worked so hard to get to that 7. They thought they were creeping back into the game, and then this happens. And they were done at that point. They don't score again. I don't even know if they got close at that point, and we ended up beating them by more than we've ever beaten that team by. And then, that was the first time we had beaten them since 2016, but that was only the 6th time ever in 40 years. It was crazy. So really proud of that one. And then this one gets called back, but this is another one of our rivals. I know I keep saying that. We kind of have like 3 really big games for us. So that team we beat just because we hadn't beaten them a whole lot, the yellow and green team, and then this team. And we didn't get to actually play them this year because of COVID, but they're in our region, and they've actually had won the region the previous 2 years. But thought we had a really good shot of one. Ours, for this one, they follow it exactly. Basically, they're going to kick it over this way, but the crease is over here on the left hash. And this is the very first play. And part of this, too, was this guy would normally kick it deep, but they're kind of playing that they don't want us to return it, is what's happening here. And this is the very first play. And this was another one of those games that we felt like, if we kind of punch them in the mouth, that the route could be on. And we get this call back, and we just never could get any flow. So you can see they actually kick it to the up back, but this is why we let them know that what the plan is, like where we're trying to return it to, even these guys, so that they have an idea where that crease is.
Yeah, I got a question. Sorry. You may or may not want to answer this, but do you plan to return it in the same place the entire week, like all the kickoffs that you see?
Yes, typically. So kind of 2 things there. One, I don't want to try to do too much, or, we sometimes say so OJ would be one that he's the returner back there, and he's pretty good about seeing the creases. And he might say, well, Coach, I know we've worked this week all week to do this, but the crease is actually showing up here. So I might just completely flip the numbers. And so that's partly why we give them those numbers is I got it on a little sheet, and I'll tell them, you're going to block the opposite now. And so instead of R3, you got L3 or something along that lines, and we'll just flip it. But typically we won't even do that. And then the second part of that is, especially last year, we were extremely good on defense. So, we really only had 3 shots at the most. It wasn't until the last game of the season that we lost to a team that basically plays in the state championship every year that they put it on us and scored 37 points. But they, that was the first time we returned any more than 3 kicks in a game. So like this game, it's 3 kicks that we got. So the final score was 9-0. We didn't score, but they kicked this, and then they kicked a field goal and the touchdown. So we normally only focus on one all week is kind of what the deal is with that. And I think that's another thing where we're trying to stoke up the defense that and again, we've had some special players that that was him making a special play, really. But unfortunately, back here, I think it's this guy gets called for holding, and it's one of those that I don't know. From this angle, it's kind of hard to tell. He's holding them. I guess I don't know for certain, but it was so far to me behind the play, and just the fact that we're I think being nitpicky as far as what exactly happens. He does tackle him, but he's like going low, I guess. So I don't know. Got to play what they call, basically. So, but he makes a great play there for us. So this is this year. This is one. This was the only chance we got this week. We shut these guys out. So this was the only kick return we got against this team, and so they had a pretty good kicker, and we kind of had an idea where it was going to go, but they tried a little bit different because trying to think so this was our first game back off of being quarantined. And so the game we had played before this was against the green and yellow team, and we had returned one. I think I got that clip here that we had returned one pretty well against them, and so they're kind of trying to keep it away from our guy. Well, then it actually squirts through the up back guy's legs and gets to the dude we want to get the ball, and so. Or at least one of the ones that we're trying to. So if I remember correctly from this one, this was 2 months ago, and another little side story, this was the night that our son was born, so I'm not actually at the game. I'm watching it on YouTube, the live stream of it, and so I was especially proud that we got this done, and I wasn't even there, and then kind of on the fly figuring out, but you can see where the crease is, and so that's where we had planned to return this all week. But again, he makes a great football play. He starts it there, but then realizes it's not exactly there and kind of weaves through, and then turns on the afterburners, makes a good play there for sure. But then something else, then giving credit and rewarding everybody. Watch our guy here. He's 5'3", 105 pounds, state champion wrestler. So we try to find, he's a senior, we're trying to figure out where to get him on the field. And that's what it's about right there. I mean, if he don't get in there and get to that guy probably makes a tackle on him, or at least makes it. But making it important, and can't say enough about him. And he knows. He even said to me earlier this year, Coach, I'm 5'3", 105 pounds. Football is not in my, in my future. So where can I get on the football field and make an impact? And that's what he did. And so I'm glad he stuck it out and helped us out, because he had played for us all 4 years. But again, is a really good wrestler. So this is the first kickoff against North Central, the green and yellow team. And so this was the film that they had gotten, Chesterfield, the team we saw just the previous clip. And DJ again, the guy that returned that other one, he just kind of runs out. That right there is kind of what got him, gave those other guys a chance to catch up. So these guys had typically been kicking it over here and kicking it to this, but we were trying to return it down the right hash. So they tried a little change up here. Not real sure why, but you can see the crease, the little alleyway right through here. So this is the kicker that we've left. And he finds just enough to get through there. And he kind of got up in there too much. And their kicker is actually one of their DBs, so he's actually one of their better tacklers. But I believe it's their dude right here, 15. He's a man. He's another state champion wrestler. He's won it several times. And I think he's the one that ends up coming back and making a play here. But it's kind of what can we do to block him when he's just a smart football player. And kind of there at the end, not quite in, but But huge momentum play. Again, unfortunately, we couldn't punch that in. We get down there to the 15-yard line and end up with no points. So last year, again, the momentum swing here. So this is a team, we end up beating them pretty good, but they're struggling. They've had some injuries, but they got some players on their team, and they've scored and are winning, I think 7-0 at this point. And again, OJ's back here, and we need something to get the momentum. We need something to get our mojo going. And we had kind of been struggling leading into this game, and I'd done something pregame trying to get them fired up, and I'm kind of wondering if it's checking in yet. And so, we get to this point, and so this is where we're actually trying to return it over here. That we're not blocking, if I remember correctly, a couple of these guys, because they just kind of run in a straight line. They hadn't really kicked it this high yet before. We're trying to get over to this right hash. Well, again, OJ being a good football player, that he realizes he ain't going to make it. He can run 22 miles an hour, but he ain't going to make it back over here. So he starts this way and then works his way back. So, again, at that point, it's just, guys making plays, speed at that point. So he starts on the path to try to get to that, but, he ends up finding his little crease and doing his thing. But, we've been successful putting an emphasis on things and then coaching kind of like little details and then trying to do it a little different is the main thing that we do. So, but I appreciate you having me on. That was the last clip. Anything, anybody watches this and wants to ask, I guess I should have put that on there. Email me at todd.shigley at lcsd.k12.sc.us, or you can find me on Twitter at Coach Shig. Is where kind of the easiest ways to get a hold of me. But we try to be transparent and let everybody do that. Some of the things that I didn't go into every little trade secret as far as what we call stuff and things like that, but I think it's just one of those, if you put an emphasis on it and coach it and practice it, that you can end up doing a good job at it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Coach Shigley, and I know I learned a lot from this presentation. So hopefully people that watch this take something away from it as well. It was interesting, and it makes me think a little bit about what we've been doing and what can we do to change things a little bit, because sometimes you need to change up a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I'm always trying to learn and try to pass that along to our players, that learner's mentality. And I think that's what helps and tends to be what, the better coaches, that they're always evolving and trying to do that. And, I apologize if I got a little long-winded on some of this, but, I think it's where you can win some games for sure. Just doing little bits and pieces of it.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll put all that information on the video, and then if people want to contact you, then they can. And,
okay, great.
We really appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to another time.
All right, great. Yeah, sure. Look forward to it too.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. I'd like to thank Coach Shigley for joining us today. If you'd like to get in touch with him, we'll put his email and his Twitter down on the screen. Be sure to smash that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. See you guys.